What's up, everybody? We're back.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Hey, welcome back to a Metalhead's Journey. Hey, so we have finally made it back around with many obstacles in our path. We finally made it back around to the Metal Time Machine. Now, I don't remember if we disclosed way back when we did the other Metal Time Machine one. What was that? Tiamat?
Yeah.
More like
Yeah.
making me Tia mad. We had to listen to that. But we spun the wheel of doom, death,
Doom.
metalheads, whatever. Anyway, we landed on 1988. Okay, now if you don't remember how we do numbers on this show, for whatever reason, we've landed on the number 4 as being like the primary number of the show. 4 of us. We shuffle brackets 4 times. So anyway, what we do is we like to, when we did this Metal Time Machine, is we wanted to do the 4th best record from the last from each year from the last 40 years. Now listen, I value transparency on this channel, and I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. I'm going to show you behind the curtain right now. We are not doing the 4th best record from 1988. Okay, we're actually going to do the 6th best record from 1988. And listen. We like we're talking about it, and we're like, we're doing that for us. No, actually, we're doing that for you, our fan. Okay, because we would have sat here for 15 minutes and just crapped all over the record that we were supposed to do. And I'm not going to say what the record is. Just know it's not for us. Okay,
it was terrible.
So look, we sampled a couple other records, and we landed on this record that we're doing here today. And man, this is one of those records that makes me happy that we do this show, because we never would have discovered this in a million years. Okay, so this is the 6th, should have been the 4th, the 6th best record of 1988. This is Crimson Glory with Transcendence. We'll get right into the history of the band here real quick, and then we'll get right into it. This is going to be brief. I think Dave has some more insight into the band here. I'm just going to give something brief, and we'll talk about it. Crimson Glory, formed in 1983, is an American heavy metal band from Florida. They started in 1979 under the name Pierced Arrow. Okay, now let's stop for a second. Pierced Arrow, Crimson Glory. Which one?
Crimson Glory.
I like Crimson Glory.
I like Pierced Arrow.
I don't know. I think it would depend on the type of music.
Same music.
See, I tend to think of Crimson Glory. Every time I think of the word crimson, I'm thinking blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So give me the Crimson Mask, Crimson Glory.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they took Crimson Glory from like a rose. It's like a sub genre of a rose.
Oh, like a subspecies.
Basically. Yeah. Yeah. Jonah, you never gave me a choice.
I think I'm with you. I think Pierced Arrow sounds better. I think it sounds cooler.
Let's go. All right, so now we're going to change this. We're doing Pierced Arrow, and this is their album Transcendence. They also went by Beowulf for a while. Yeah, look, the story of Beowulf is cool, but like, come on, dude, get your own name, bro. Before settling on Crimson Glory, the classic lineup consisted of the vocalist Midnight, guitarist John Drenning and Ben Jackson, bass guitarist Jeff Lords, and drummer Dana Burnell. With that lineup, the band rose to international fame in the mid-1980s and was considered one of the pioneers of the American progressive metal movement, along with, say it with me, Queensryche, Dream Theater, Fate's Warning, and some other band called Watchtower, who knows. During its career, the band released 4 studio albums and 1 EP. Transcendence, released in 1988, is the band's 2nd studio album. Transcendence was a landmark in the genre, often cited as one of the greatest progressive metal albums of all time, best metal albums of the decade, and an influence by many bands like Cage, Triosphere, and Rhapsody of Fire, all friends of the show. The album garnered them much praise and attention, both at home and abroad. They were on the cover of Kerrang! Magazine in 1989, May of 1989. This album features one single, Lonely.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on the band. I will then give a shout out to the YouTube video I watched and point you guys in that direction here. History. Crimson.
While you're doing that, Dave, you're the ringleader for getting us to switch albums. So, just tell us why you're looking that up. Tell us what you thought about the record. Are you happy we made the switch?
Oh, absolutely. I do have it pulled up. It was there's a YouTube channel called Metal School, and they put out little like documentary vids, relatively short, digestible, reminiscent of like behind the music from the VH1 thing.
Shout out to Metal School.
Yep. They put out a vid 3 years ago on Crimson Glory, 16 minutes. I watched all of that. Really interesting stuff. Without treading through that entire video, it's really interesting that Crimson Glory, they started out as a kind of a prog band, and with this album they really leaned into it heavy. And it's interesting how after this they basically went backwards a bit in terms of style, and then more or less the band kind of disintegrated. They broke up, they reformed without the singer Midnight, released an album, and then kind of broke up again. They reformed again. The lead singer Midnight passed away due to some medical issues, and then they broke up again. And then they recently as 2023, have reformed with a lot of the same members in order to, and presumably might come out with another album this year. But it's crazy how we were talking about this a little bit before we went live here or started recording. It's crazy how this band is so influential in such a short period of time. I really wish in an alternate universe we would have gotten like the real kind of career of Crimson Glory if they would have just kind of continued on this path. I think they could have done a whole lot. As far as my enjoyment of this record, I want to say just through osmosis of growing up and listening to metal, I'm sure I've heard of this band name before, and I'm almost certain I've seen this album cover. Being a prog metal fan myself, like I know I've seen this album as recommended to me on websites or lists at some point, but I can tell you I've never gone around and gotten around to listen to it. And man, it's an impressive album for a band's second release, especially being in the year that it came out in '88 when there just wasn't as much of this type of music as prevalent. I think this is an awesome album. I'm so happy we pivoted to it. Because, without spoiling my score or anything too much, this is definitely going to go into my regular rotation. I think the whole album is enjoyable. 10 songs, pretty short, relatively quick runtime.
For a prog record, yeah, it's not too long.
Yeah, and all the band members are impressive. Regardless of who our MVPs end up being, I think all the band members are impressive in their own right.
Yeah,
I do have a quick question. Do we think that, and maybe it said it in this video that you watched, but when they moved away from prog, do you think part of the reasoning why they did that is this time frame? This time frame, we really saw the kind of the explosion of more, more thrash at this time.
Like the Panteras and
Metallica. I'm just saying, like
Metallicas of the world.
Yeah, I'm just curious if they saw that and were like, man, if we want to go mainstream, then we're gonna have to change our sound. I didn't watch that video, so I didn't know.
Well,
I was just curious.
I don't want to just steal too much from the video, but I get the impression, to your point, Jason, that after this record came out in '88, I don't think they were wholly happy with the overall like financial performance of the record, and they were a little bit more interested in some of the up and coming styles of music at the time in the early '90s, like a tribal, more hard rock oriented sound, which is what their third album sounds like. Yeah, which is kind of what their third album sounds like. And because of their abandonment of the prog metal, 2 of their band members ended up leaving due to creative differences.
Yeah, philosophical differences. Okay. But it just, I wonder what that alternate universe looks like for them if they just stay on the prog side and just continue down that path.
I mean, if this record was anything, any sign of that, man, like it's
Because
crazy
there's a
how
lot to like.
it's crazy how good this album is. You know, this came out the same year as Operation Mindcrime, and I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think this is completely out of the ballpark of that record. I think from a concept album standpoint, obviously Operation Mindcrime I think is superior in like telling that type of story. But just in terms of pure musicianship, like I don't think this band is that far off from Queensryche. And I don't think that's a hot take at all. Like I think the lead singer here, Midnight, is incredibly well talented.
Is what?
I think he's. I think
Are you gonna put him in the same conversation as Jeff Tate?
I'm not saying he's as good as Jeff Tate, but I'm saying that he's a very, very good singer. Like I think he's way above average and that sounds like an insult, but like I think he's a really, really, really talented singer.
Did Midnight email you back in like the 90s? Is that why you're like repping for Midnight right now?
I'm not. I mean, I think he's a good singer. I guess
Jeff
y'all.
Tate,
I guess
I
y'all.
got
I
your
guess y'all do
back here,
not.
bro.
I guess you do not all feel that same way about him. But I think he's really talented.
Well, I know at least one
Jason.
of us doesn't.
Yeah.
Jason, what's your opinion on this record?
I was pleasantly surprised, man. I think the fun part for me is, especially in the time machine, we go back to a time I was 10, 11, depending on what month of the year this came out or whatever. I guess I was probably 10. And, you just don't know because this is not what I was listening to when I was 10.
Let's see.
88, right?
88.
Yeah, it's in 88, but it
Okay,
actually
so I'm
doesn't.
14.
It released November 14th.
Okay, so I'm 14 years old, 14 or 15 years old. Uh, I was not listening to this. I was listening to Metallica. I was listening to older, I was like hard rock stuff like that. But I found this to be very pleasant. The vocals are a little high pitched for me in a lot of spots, but there are songs where he really brings it down. He lowers the octaves. He has good range. I don't mind the vocalist at all. I thought the guitar work is fantastic. There's a lot to like. Unfortunately for me, since this is not exactly my cup of tea, there's not a lot that I just love. But I definitely do not hate this album. This was enjoyable.
Jason, and it's okay if you say you don't know here, but I just wonder off the top of your head, can you tell me the single album that represents the vocal style that you love?
No, because there's not a single.
Right.
But when the register
Jonah, what was
gets too
your opinion
high,
of the record here?
when the register gets too high, it's hard for me to stay in.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. The first couple of listens, I was also pleasantly surprised by how good it was. And like Jason, the first few listens are generally like as background music while I'm doing other things, whether I'm working or doing stuff around the apartment, whatever. In that regard, very, very high ratings from me. Once I started listening to it more critically, I guess, and like with headphones and taking all my notes and stuff today, I did maybe nitpick a little bit more. And my score will probably reflect that. But overall, I think it's a great album. The guitar work on this album is fantastic. The solos are ripping and screaming a lot of the times. The riffs are really solid. I mean, in the intro track alone, I think kind of is a perfect representation of all of the stuff I think that they were trying to do with the album. So it's a great intro, opening track. The bass sounds really good as well. There are a couple of standouts where the bass is kind of carrying the main riff with the solos and stuff going on top of it. But other than that, I did generally enjoy Midnight's lead vocals. The style is not something that I have a problem with, but I do agree with Jason. There are a couple of moments where like he really is pushing those high pitched screams, and I'm like, okay, back off just a little bit. You don't got to go all that out.
Just, yeah.
Um, my only real issue with his vocals, personally, is the vocal melodies. I'm real big on, and on a couple of the songs, it's like kind of mid at best. But overall, I did enjoy the vocals. Yeah, this is a really good album, and while I am glad for my own sanity that we switched, I just want to go on the record by saying that on principle, I opposed us switching, but I think it ended up working out for the best.
Yeah, just for our own mental health, not having to
Yes,
listen to
yes.
that other album more than once. Listen, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. This album rules. I couldn't be happier that we made the switch. I have no morals when it comes to that. We need to do what's best for us and our enjoyment, and that's what this album is. This was great. Riffs are great. I really do like Midnight's vocals. I just take offense when we were talking about Midnight and Jeff Tate in the same sentence. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, no, not even close.
No. I'll go right into MVP for me. So at first I was going to go Ben Jackson, who is technically listed as the rhythm guitar player, and being a rhythm guitar player myself, I gotta rep my guy. But John Drenning, actually, he's a lead guitar player, but he actually has more writing credit on the record. So I think a lot of the riffs and the performances are his, and Ben Jackson is just more playing his stuff. So I'm going to go John Drenning just for the quality of the riffs. When we were kind of choosing these or choosing this record, we sampled a couple of songs, and man, that was instantly the first thing that stood out was just the quality of the playing. So I'm going to go John Drenning for MVP.
Yeah.
Joe, who you got?
Oh, I was gonna jump in real quick. I also
Go
got
ahead,
John.
Go ahead, Dave.
I got John Drenning as well, for a lot of the same reasons. Additionally, in addition to him having credits on all the music, and obviously being the lead guitar player, and the leads, as we've established, are really strong. He has lyrical credits as well on a lot of the album, like half the record is, or over half of the album as well. So, he's contributing on all fronts on this band, and yeah, I mean, for those reasons, I gotta give it to him.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. It's going to be John Drenning for me. The guitar work on this album, really,
Nice.
really solid, really, really good. It's John Drenning.
Yeah, I'm not going to discredit anything that you researched, but I'm going to go ahead and give credit to both guitarists, Ben Jackson and John Drenning, only because more than just the solos, a lot of the riff work, even in some of the verses of some of the songs, they use different styles of riffs. There was
written by
somewhere
John
you
Drenning.
had you would have these little harmonic parts,
Yeah.
harmony parts. You would have ascending, galloping styles. None of them were just. It wasn't the same style from song to song. Like they really did mix it up, and that was the one thing that I kept coming back to on every song was how good the guitar work was.
Right. It's a John Drenning sweep then. Jason, why don't you take us through your album title and album cover score here?
All right, so title, I don't have any issues. I assume that this is, I don't know exactly what it is, but I just went for the Crimson Mask. If it's the face full of blood or whatever, doesn't make any difference to me. But Crimson Glory for the band, great. Transcendence for me, I enjoyed the song. I liked the album cover. I liked it all. I thought it was very spot on 1988. For the title, I gave it a 7 out of 10. And the artwork, I gave it an 8.5.
Nice. I'll jump in. Or Dave, I guess from that thing, I guess not to keep ripping off this other guy's work here, but we appreciate it. Was there any info into like kind of what the name Transcendence came from or anything?
I don't have that in front of me, but I do want to call out the front cover, the album art. It was made by a Japanese artist, Takashi Terada, and it was featured on the Japanese poster of a film from 1985 called Life Force. So, not
Why you
really
stealing
sure.
my stuff there?
What's up?
So why you stealing my stuff? I was going to explain that, but
Oh, I'm
I was
sorry.
just looking for the album title, bro.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have that. I don't have that.
All right.
Not in front of me anyway.
All right. Yeah, look, I got a hard time whenever my opinion is that the title track is the worst track on the record. That just makes the album title just a smidge weaker, than it should be. So I'm gonna go with the 5.7 on the album title. But the album cover, though, it's a masterpiece. I'm gonna go with 10. I
Ooh.
love the album cover for this. I mean, it's kind of a mix of all the best worlds: metal, sci-fi, boobs.
Boobs.
Yeah.
I mean, So yeah, that's
What are we
that's
doing
it.
here?
If we were going to eventually do a bracket, Dave, idea. If we were going to do a bracket of the best metal album covers,
Yeah.
I think this is in the conversation right now.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Especially if we separate the artwork from the album, the music itself, right?
Yeah, if we're just talking pure artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, you're half right there. Album art, I also have it as a 10. I think this is everything and more from a heavy metal album art, especially one that's from the 80s. But even now, like why don't bands still make album cover art like this? I just think it's cool.
That'd be awesome.
You got a lady strapped to presumably a missile, and she's shooting laser beams out of her face. I mean, it's great, right?
Freaking laser beams.
Freaking laser beam.
Album title. I'm not like you, Josh. I can separate the album title from the song, and just say like the album's called Transcendence. Dude, that's because I think the album is really good, so I think that title works great with the album. I gave it a 10. I love it. I think the album title is fantastic.
Wow.
Two tens.
Yeah, 2 10s.
Wowza.
Wow.
So I'm definitely going to fall
Good.
somewhere in the middle of you two. I do agree that this is a fantastic album cover. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but it's really good. And I think the album title, I think the album art isn't perfect. I don't think the title's perfect either, but they're both really, really good. I ended up landing at a 9 for both.
All right.
Very sure.
Gentlemen, why don't you take us into your top tracks?
Okay, so this one was a little difficult because I went back and forth between a few because the style of some of these songs they mix it up quite a bit here with the type of riffs and stuff that they're writing, and this will lead into whenever we talk about track order and listing. The placement of the songs I think is really good, and so that made it a little hard for me to pick some of my favorite songs. But in the end, I did come up with which ones were my favorite. So at in third place, I went with "In Dark Places." It's a really good song. Bass sounds great on that. The solo rips. It's got a good outro. In second place, I've got "Lady of Winter." Like I said before, that opening track is really good. Sets the stage for the rest of the album. Killer solo on that one also. There's so many good solos on this album. And then for number one, I ended up with "Painted Skies." It's a little bit slower, has kind of a ballady intro, but I mean, again, the bridge and the solo were so good on this song. Just overall, it's a great song. That's my number one.
Good choice. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go because mine are very, very similar to Jonah's, although not the order of them. My honorable mention is "Lady of Winter." I think it's a great opening track, leading off the record. Small note here: I don't know why Spotify decided to have a completely different track order on this record. With no explanation I could find online why all the streaming services have a different track order, but I went with the official track order that's everywhere else. Anyway, "Lady of Winter," my honorable mention. My number 3, "Lonely," the only single. I think it's a great song. Great solo, just great chorus. I think it's awesome. My number 2, Painted Skies, fantastic song. Another killer chorus. Yeah, even though it's a little bit slower. Actually, all of my top 3 are on the slower end of the album. My number 1 is In Dark Places. I love that song. I loved like just the vibe. It's kind of got a,
Yeah.
forgive me, a little darker vibe. I love the way Midnight's vocals work with that because she doesn't go super high on that song, and then the guitar
It's
solo.
more in range.
The guitar solo is excellent on that song. Yeah, loved it.
Go ahead, Jason.
All right, so I do have a honorable mention,
Oh
and it is
shit.
the title track, Transcendence. I actually like the song. I, as a for me, it was the closer because I didn't update my track
It's
listing.
the closer on the official one too.
Okay, cool. So my top 3. Uh, it's funny how everybody can have such varying degrees of likes and dislikes, but then for some reason we end up having almost all the same songs. My number 3, In Dark Places. My number 2 and my number 1 can be interchangeable. So for the moment, I'll just go with Lady of Winter as my number 2 and Lonely as my number 1.
Nice. Yeah, I think all 4 of mine are gonna have. I have an honorable mention of. I think all 4 of mine have the same thing in common, which is just vocal melody. Jonah mentioned vocal melody earlier. I love vocal melody as well. So I think that's going to be the overarching thing on each one of these. Honorable mention for me in Dark Places. You guys have already talked about it ad nauseum, but great song. 3 for me, Lady of Winter. I think that was the first song we heard, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Was that what we
yeah.
started on? Yeah, Lady of Winter. 2 for me, Painted Skies. Um, Again, just great vocal melodies. Almost more ballady, but still some great guitar work in there. And then, dude, Lonely is so good. And usually I don't end up picking like the singles for the record, and not to be like different necessarily. Just
Anti.
this doesn't end up being like the best songs, right? Usually it's some of the more deep cuts. Man, I love this song. I think this is an all time classic song that I've added to my overall playlist already. So, yeah, what a highlight for that record. I think that I couldn't speak highly enough for that song, honestly.
And
Uh,
I didn't even know it was the single. So
yeah. So next category here, we didn't have to use this last time, thanks to Dream Theater for doing it right. But every once in a while, we do have to dust this category off. As we all know, the true track listing sweet spot for metal albums is 8 songs. So anytime we get an album that is above 8 songs, we got to chop it down to put the best 8 songs on there. This album has 10 tracks, so we got to cut 2. I'll go first here. As I alluded to earlier, Transcendence. And look, I'm not saying Transcendence is necessarily a bad song, but it's definitely for me the worst of this bunch. And then the hardest cut is Eternal World for me.
I'll go real quick. I agree with Josh. I think Transcendence is the worst song on here. It's almost like an outro of a song because it just
I
had
had that exact note.
it just has like half the song is basically just like an acoustic outro, which is fine, but it almost felt like it was an intro to another song that we should have gotten. But anyway, that was the easiest cut. And I will tell you the next cut, it's not a bad song, but there's a part of the song that I absolutely hate vocally, and that's Red Sharks.
That's a good song.
The song is whatever. I don't have the lyrics in front of me for it, so I can't do it. But vocally, there's a part in there that I just don't like at all. And I think it's in like the chorus or the pre-chorus or whatever. Oh no, it's like "Hear no evil, see no evil,"
No
like
evil,
that whole
speak
part.
no evil, yeah.
Like that's a no for me, dog. Like, it's not even that he gets high pitched. I just don't think it works vocally. Like I think it's like he's trying to fit too many words there. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a professional, but I don't like it. So that was the easiest. That was the second easiest cut for me.
All right. Well, for me, there were 3 obvious songs that were at the bottom. One of them I scored lowest because I score my songs individually, but I had 2 scored for second worst. That was Where Dragons Rule and Transcendence. But I couldn't really. I had a hard time picking. So just for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and pick Where Dragons Rule. Because I actually do kind of like Transcendence, even though I agree with Dave. I have the exact note that the whole song itself just kind of feels like a really long outro, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but I do like it just a hair more than Where Dragons Rule. So Where Dragons Rule is going to be my first cut. And then this song, I just couldn't vibe with it. It has a good solo. It's a bit too, I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on what I don't like about this song, but for me, the worst song on the album was Burning Bridges. I didn't vibe with that song at all.
I actually really like that song.
Yeah, I actually like that
a good
song.
I feel you on
Jason.
Where Dragons Rule, though.
I can go.
Like thematically, it almost feels like it doesn't fit.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
I only had 2 songs that I just didn't vibe with, and one of them you guys all liked, Painted Skies. I just did not. I don't know. It just never hit me. And absolutely, without a doubt, in my opinion, the worst song on here, and you are pretty close on there, Jonah, and that's Where Dragons Rule.
Yeah.
Thought it was pretty hokey and lame.
Jason, you have the worst taste in music. All right. So right here is where we like to talk about just like a score for the track listing. Dave mentioned earlier about the difference in track listing on Spotify versus other outlets. I know Dave did the work to put together the proper track list. I didn't use Dave's work, as I usually don't. So I am going to score the track listing from Spotify, and my 2 cuts were the 2 last songs on the album. So the way it's constituted, the way I've listened to it, I'm going to give it a 7 because having to cut the last 2 songs is a bit of a black eye for this record. But I mean, the track listing ahead of that, I think, is excellent. So
I came in
I'll
at
jump
8.
in. Okay, you came in at 8.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't need to go into detail.
Yeah, my reasoning for my score is very similar to Josh's. I went by the Spotify track listing and the top 3 songs. Gave it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
all right, go ahead, Jonah.
I listened to the official order and not the Spotify order, so I also gave it an 8. I thought the order placement of the songs was really good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we're going into the last category here. This is where we like to give our score for the record. And just to give you some context to how we score, for a lot of folks out there, a 7 would be an average score. Well, for us, it's a 5. So anything that's 4.9 and below is various levels if we would not recommend that record. Anything 5 and above is various levels if we would recommend it. And anything between 9 and 10 is like an all-time classic record. As always, I'm going to try to attempt to guess the lowest score first. Jason, how about you go first?
I feel like you just by default can probably pick Jason every time, and like if you were a gambler,
Hey, look, it's either me or Jonah, and based on how things go.
Yeah, until we get to like the Beatles or maybe a random Nirvana album pop up or something like that, or Manson, I'm typically going to Jason first.
just to give you an idea, Josh, Jason's average score on when we did our top 50 metal albums list was a 5.9. Okay. So
that's pretty bad.
On all the lists, on all the spreadsheets I have, he only, and I won't spoil it, but he only has one list that his average score is above a 7. So I think mathematically, you guessed correct. Mathematically, you should probably just let him go first every time.
Yeah. Hey, statistically speaking, listen, this is a really good album. I would recommend this to anybody that's a fan of the genre or the time period. Even the songs that I really didn't really care for, I would generally not say that they're terrible. Even where Dragons Rule is, in my opinion, a timepiece for the genre or for that era. Uh, Even though I would possibly skip it. But having said that, again, I think the talent is abundant. I came at a 6.9.
Nice.
Nice.
All right.
I think Jonah's going to have
right?
lower than me for sure.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to guess between me and Jonah.
I
I
think
can
it's
tell you
I
my
think
score
Jonah-
is
I'm gonna
pretty.
take- Go ahead.
I would say my score is pretty close to Jason's actually. So I have
Okay.
confidence.
Then
I'm
you're
probably
you're
yeah.
lower than me then.
So yes. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed the album. I think any given day I could probably put this album on while I'm doing other stuff, and I'll completely enjoy every second of it. Um, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier, the album's 50 minutes long, but it doesn't feel very long at all. Like it kind of blows through pretty quick. I did notice that, so it's an easy listen. Anyway, based on everything I've already said, none of these tracks I scored below a 5 when I score them individually, so it definitely gets a recommend for me. The highlights of the album for me, obviously, being the guitar work. We didn't talk about production, but I think the production's really good on this album. It definitely feels like an 80s album, but that's for better, not for worse. I ended up coming in at a 7.1. I think it's a really
Nice.
solid album, really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go next. I think I'll be next here. Yeah, so for me, like I said at the top, I think this is an awesome record. I couldn't be happier that we pivoted to this, and this is the thing that really makes me love like what we're doing here every week is discovering albums like this that otherwise would just be lost in the void somewhere. And luckily, we can bring this to about 30 people that might watch this video, and maybe get some more love. Um, I struggled between two scores on this. I landed on an 8 for this record because of how good I think Lonely is. I don't know, look, if you put a gun to my head and said, I need your top 100 songs of all time, it'd be difficult to make that list. But I feel like only spending a week with Lonely, it'd be hard to make that list. But it's definitely, to me, probably one of the better songs I've ever heard in my life. Where would that fall on the list? I have no idea. But because of the strength of that, and really just the quality of the record in general too, but because not every record we do has a song that I feel like is like an all-timer like that,
Yeah.
got me into the 8s.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually not that far off from you, Josh. I think about, kind of like you. I kind of have like a retrospective, or like I think back to like, man, like where would I feel about this, or how would I feel about this record if I had known about this as long as like I've been jamming Metallica. Like, if I've been jamming this since middle school, like this would probably be in the 9s for me, like with the added nostalgia factor in.
Yeah.
Having only spent a week, and actually it's actually less than
Even
that.
less than that.
Yeah, having only spent 6 days on this functionally, and then prior to this, not really even knowing that this record existed other than a passing knowledge of it, I ended up at an 8.3, which again I know is going to sound low if you're a fan of Crimson Glory and if you're a fan of this record, but I've only spent 6 days with it. And my brain is having to combat all of the stuff that I love, and it still scores that high. So I think this is a great record. I could easily see myself jamming this. I could just put this record on and jam it from start to finish. Even the songs that I don't love, I would jam. I don't think I would ever skip a song, really, because it does go fast. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. 7.58 is what our average score ended up, which is B tier for us. And I will go ahead and read what a 7 means for us, which is good, worth listening to. The 7 is solid, enjoyable, well made. The album has strong tracks and likely showcases creativity or skill. Though it may have some filler or uneven spots, it's definitely worth listening to for fans of the artist or genre, which I think for us describes this record pretty much to a T. But I think my score could go up over time.
Yeah. Dave, I'm sorry if you don't have this prepared and to put you on the spot here, but where does this rank for us against the other albums on the prog metal list?
That's a good point. I do have that available. So that was a 7.58. Just off the top, 1, 2, 3. There's only 3 albums that this doesn't beat. Now, I think that's largely contributed to the fact that Jason does not like prog. So I do need to add that disclaimer that his score does bring down the averages on the prog list fairly down. Like his average.
Where does his 6.9 for this record? Where does that put him against other prog records?
Better than any of them. This would be his best. Oh no, I'm sorry. He did like Fate's Warning: Theories of Flight. He has that as a 7.1.
Okay.
But yeah, just to give you an idea, his average score on that list is 6.2. Mine is 8.7. So quite a bit of difference there in terms of the genres that we like.
That's a pretty significant delta.
Yeah. But no, I mean, to your point, Josh, I mean, if this were on that list, like this would rank pretty highly amongst the other, classic prog metal albums, which I think it does. I think it stacks up with those records fairly well.
Yeah. I do too. All right. Well, hey, if you guys like Mutant Onions out there, go ahead and hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're putting out weekly metal content right now. We got metal reactions, metal reviews, metal time machines, metal brackets, and all kinds of other cool stuff. And hey, in the meantime, live long and say no to bass guitars.
Take it easy, everybody.
Later.
Peace.